He was a prodigy, the brightest of his generation, his etheric core humming with power at 18. Yet Julian, the master he had revered, shattered that core and his future along with it. Julian did this because he saw strange, spectral words floating in the air, words that convinced him to sacrifice Ethan's life to mend the injuries of a younger disciple. His expression was one of profound sorrow when he explained that the boy, Leo, was destined for greatness. He told Ethan that fate could not be defied, and that no matter how much Ethan struggled, he was merely an ant trying to shake a mountain. With his bones broken, Ethan clung to life at the bottom of a ravine. He never imagined he would become the prized possession of the Master of the Crimson Order. Later, on the day of their commitment ceremony, Julian, who had always been a figure of cold composure, appeared in a frenzy, his white robes stained crimson with blood. A branch propped him up, his knees half buckled on the hard ground. His limbs were shattered, and a ragged hole gaped at the back of his neck. He should have died there alone on that cliff. But through the wind, he heard the delicate chiming of bells, woven with the sound of a woman's seductive laughter. The sounds drew closer, then stopped a short distance away. He tried to swallow, but he lacked the strength even to lift his head to see who had arrived. Despair washed over him as a single tear traced a path through the grime and blood on his face. The figure stood there for a long moment before approaching. The hem of a magnificent red robe came into view. A man's voice, playful and edged with a mocking tone, remarked how long it had been since he had seen someone so thoroughly broken, especially since the righteous orders had taken power. A hand, pale as jade, cupped his chin and lifted his face. He met a pair of captivating, smiling eyes and a face of breathtaking, almost demonic beauty. As their gazes locked, a flicker of compassion crossed the man's features. A warm fingertip gently wiped away the blood, revealing Ethan's handsome face beneath. The man seemed thoughtful, as if he recognized him. After a moment, his red lips curved into a beautiful smile. He observed that Ethan had a fine face and suggested he would be a perfect fit for his Crimson Order, noting that he could see a great deal of latent talent. Ethan's weakened body trembled, his eyes fixed on the man. The cold was seeping deeper into him, life itself feeling as if it were draining away. The sounds around him faded into a dull roar. He knew only one thing. This man was his only hope for survival. With every ounce of strength he had left, he moved his fingers just enough to catch the sleeve of the red robe. The man raised an eyebrow, leaning so close that his breath was a warm caress against Ethan's skin. He murmured that Ethan was a truly pitiable sight. If he wanted to be saved, he would have to call him master. Darkness clouded Ethan's vision. His lips moved, and in that moment, he broke the vows of his youth. He was gathered into another's arms and called another man master. As the world went black, he thought he heard a faint sigh. He grew up in a small village nestled deep in the mountains. His father was a hunter, and his mother could make a meal fit for a king from the simplest ingredients. The village was small, but the landscape was breathtaking. In spring, when green shoots pushed through the earth, he would follow his mother with a basket, helping her weed the garden. As a child, he always got it wrong, and his mother would shout his name, chasing him to sweat his backside. He'd run frantically through the fields and past the houses, the sun blazing overhead until it began to dip toward the horizon. At the foot of the mountain, he would see his father returning with a deer slung over his shoulder. His father's skin was dark from the sun, his smile simple and kind. At that sight, his mother would take the deer and declare a truce, announcing with a grand flourish that they would have venison stew for dinner. On the way back, his mother would link arms with his father, while his father carried him on his shoulders. The sun would set, and life was ordinary and good. Until the day acolytes from a major order passed through. One of them, a novice showing off a newly learned fire spell, set one of the thatched roofs alight for fun. The fire leaped from one house to the next until it had consumed the entire village. The elderly village chief knelt and pleaded with the young mages, but they only pointed and laughed. One of them shouted for the others to look at how slow the villagers were, like turtles. Another noted that a fire on one side was dying down and urged his friend to give it a little boost. A family was trapped, the parents desperately trying to save their child even as the flames closed in. The one who started it all shook his head, lamenting the cheapness of mortal affection, treating their lives as a game and mocking their love as a fool's errand. How could such people call themselves protectors of the realm? His father, covered in soot, fought to save their neighbors, but he watched them die one by one. Finally, this quiet, honest man picked up his hunting rifle. "You animals," he roared. The acolyte who had been laughing grew angry, insulted that a mere mortal would dare to challenge him. That day, the beautiful village was reduced to scorched earth. The mages flew away on currents of wind, their laughter echoing behind them, as if the hundreds of lives they had extinguished were truly no more than insects. His mother had hidden him in a water barrel, and so he survived. He knew he had to live. As long as he was alive, there was a chance they would one day pay for what they did. That was when Julian appeared. He floated above the devastation on a blade of pure light. Ethan, soaked and weeping, stood in the water barrel. Julian landed, his pristine white boots touching the ash-covered ground. He took Ethan's small hand in his large one and declared that from that day forward, Ethan would be his disciple. He promised that as long as he was there, no harm would ever come to him. On that day, Ethan believed he had met a god. He never imagined that the one who saved him would also be the one to lead him to his doom. He grew up in the Jade Spire Order, and his talent and diligence made his progress tower above his peers. He was destined for a brilliant future, for the day he would avenge his parents. But before he could even find their killers, Julian brought back a boy named Leo. Julian's eyes were filled with concern as he let the boy hide behind him, clutching his sleeve in a way that defied all protocol. He introduced Leo as Ethan's junior brother. Leo's voice was bright as he greeted him, but when Julian wasn't looking, he leaned close to Ethan and whispered that he hoped for his senior brother's guidance. In the next instant, he threw himself backward, landing in a heap and coughing up blood. He pointed a trembling finger at Ethan and, in front of Julian, cried out that he must have said something wrong, that he would accept any punishment. His eyes were red, and he collapsed into Julian's arms in a display of terrified innocence. Julian's brow furrowed. Without a moment of doubt, he looked at Ethan with anger in his eyes. He demanded to know if this was how Ethan acted as a senior brother, consumed by jealousy. Leo, nestled in his arms, sobbed that it was all his fault. He shouldn't have told Ethan how much Julian doted on him and made him uncomfortable. He begged Julian not to blame his senior brother. Julian scoffed, saying it was his fault for spoiling Ethan. So, on Leo's first day, Ethan was sent to the Hall of Discipline and struck 30 times with an arcane whip. The physical pain and his master's betrayal left him with an ache so deep he could barely breathe. He closed his eyes and remembered the strange, floating text that had appeared in front of Leo just before he touched him. What was it? The mystery was solved after Leo was injured again. In the back mountains of the Jade Spire Order, a great formation sealed away a shadow beast. The beast was ancient and powerful, and from the day Ethan had joined the Order, Julian had forbidden him from ever entering the area. It was a well-known rule. But Leo, after only a few months, boldly ventured into the back mountains. The seal was broken with blood, and the entire order felt the tremor. When the elders and Julian arrived, they found Leo lying weakly on the ground. When Ethan arrived, he heard Leo weeping that his senior brother had told him his progress was slow, and that there were herbs in the back mountains that could help. His performance was flawless. The Grandmaster frowned, about to speak in Ethan's defense, but Julian silenced everyone with a single command. "Kneel." Ethan froze. He had grown used to Julian's favoritism over the past few months, but Julian had watched him grow up. Even if no one else believed him, Julian should have. He was the one who had promised no one would ever hurt him again. Now, for the sake of another, he was shouting at him. Ethan bit his lip, fighting back tears, and stared at Julian. Leo, ever the actor, began to plead on his behalf, saying his senior brother must not have known the danger. Julian cut him off, stating coldly that Ethan had been in the Order for 10 years and knew the rules of the Forbidden Grounds perfectly well. His expression was grim, his gaze like a blade. Ethan met Leo's eyes, and Leo gave him a subtle, mocking smile. In the next moment, Ethan drew his sword and lunged. It was because of him. It was his silver tongue that had bewitched his master. The blade never reached its target. His own power was nothing before Julian. But as he was thrown back, he touched Leo again and saw the strange words floating before him. "This senior brother is just cannon fodder. Why won't he die already? He's getting in the way of the protagonist and his male lead. If the cannon fodder doesn't stir up trouble, how will the master dote on our dear Leo? How else will he become so disappointed that he takes his etheric core?" The contact was brief, but it was enough to turn his world upside down. Julian struck him and he coughed up blood. Even though he pleaded innocent, the Order accepted Julian's silent verdict. He was severely punished, his body covered in welts. Before he could recover, he was sent on a mission to slay 10 powerful demonic beasts and bring back their cores. When he finally returned, battered but triumphant, a white jade hairpin clutched in his hand as a peace offering for his master, he found that the man he admired most was waiting to kill him. He stood stunned at the edge of the cliff, a necessary path back to the Order, and Julian was there waiting for him. At first, seeing his master waiting, he felt a surge of joy, thinking Julian had finally seen the truth. Then Julian spoke, his voice void of warmth. He stated that Leo's foundation had been damaged by the Shadow Beast because of Ethan's misdirection, and to restore it, he needed Ethan's etheric core. Ethan stumbled back a step, looking at him in disbelief. He questioned if his master meant to trade his life for Leo's. Julian looked at him with something akin to pain in his eyes, but said that Ethan had to pay for what he had done. Ethan cried out that he hadn't done it, trying desperately to explain. The first time, Leo had thrown himself backward. He hadn't even touched him. After that, he had never spoken to him again, so how could he have told him to go to the back mountains? The injustice was a tidal wave in his chest. He wanted to make Julian understand, believing that his master simply didn't know the truth. But Julian just closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again, their expression shattering all of Ethan's hopes. He told Ethan, his voice soft, to stop making excuses. Excuses, not explanations. In his heart, the judgment had already been passed. Despite all their years together, he still didn't trust him. Why? Why, after raising him, teaching him, training with him, would the one person in the world who should have believed him not believe him? For the first time in over a decade, he shouted Julian's full name. His eyes burned with disappointment. He wanted to know why he refused to believe him. All the years of care, the bond of master and student, crumbled in that moment of broken trust. His chest heaved with anger. He drew his blade against the man who had raised him. He declared that he would obey his master's command, but that he carried the weight of his parents' unsolved murder and could not die yet. He promised that once he had his revenge, he would return to the Jade Spire Order and offer his life freely. Julian knew everything. He understood, but he would not listen. His mind was consumed with saving his younger disciple. The man with the bearing of a stoic god lowered his gaze, seeming to hesitate. A flicker of hope ignited in Ethan's heart, only to be extinguished when Julian spoke. No. Tears finally fell. With his vision blurred by red, he raised his sword. He challenged Julian, saying that if he was in such a hurry, he should come and take it himself. A flicker of something unreadable crossed Julian's face before he nodded and drew his own sword, a blade like polished jade. A tassel Ethan had woven for him once hung from the hilt, a prize from a tournament he had fought hard to win. Now it had been replaced by a common good luck charm, the kind sold at any market stall. He closed his eyes, unable to look. The same stances, the same attacks he knew so well. Julian had once held his hand, guiding him through each movement. Now, the one who had been closest to him had become his enemy, trying to kill him for another. The gap in their power was too great. Even as a young genius, he was no match for him. The energy from Julian's blade tore through his clothes, and he was sent flying, crashing into the dirt at the edge of the ravine. Julian followed, the tip of his sword at Ethan's neck. A hint of reluctance showed in his eyes. He admitted that he couldn't bring himself to kill the disciple he had raised. He offered a deal. If Ethan would let him take the etheric core to heal Leo, he would forgive everything. Ethan would still be his disciple, the senior brother of the Jade Spire Order. He sheathed his sword and reached out, his touch gentle on Ethan's face. His eyes held a flicker of pain as he tried to console him. He told him that with his talent, even without the core, he could reach the same heights again in 100 years with his guidance. The man known for his cold detachment was now kneeling, his robes stained with Ethan's blood, patiently trying to coax him into accepting his own death. Ethan looked at him with mockery in his eyes and laughed. He laughed so hard that tears and blood spilled from the corners of his eyes. He hadn't done it and he wouldn't give it up. He told Julian to just kill him. Julian stared, his hand raised and trembling. Ethan tilted his head back, ready for the end. But instead, Julian told him he wouldn't kill him. He told him to go. Before Ethan could hear the rest, Leo arrived on an enchanted skiff. He rushed to Julian's side, crying pitifully. He begged Julian not to blame his senior brother, saying it was his own fault. He claimed that he might die, but his senior brother was the future of the Jade Spire Order. He sobbed into Julian's chest. Julian remained unmoved until his gaze drifted upward and saw the text floating above Leo's head. His hand tightened on his sword. Ethan's heart pounded. He remembered what he had seen before. With his blood-soaked hand, he grabbed Leo's robe, and in that instant, he saw the reason he had to die. The white undergarments someone had changed for him were torn away, and his boneless body could only cling to the man in red. Long fingers deftly dressed him in layers of crimson gauze, thin and almost transparent. The man's captivating eyes narrowed. He cupped Ethan's chin, remarking that red suited him far better. Their eyes met, one pair lifeless, the other sparkling with life. The man's hand slid to the back of his neck, pulling him close before his teeth sank into his flesh. A jolt went through him, but he didn't struggle. He tilted his head back, obediently letting himself be devoured. The man murmured that he was a good apprentice. The familiar title brought a flash of memory, of the etheric core being ripped from his back, of being left to die helpless and alone. His breathing hitched, and blood trickled from the corner of his lip. Silas immediately pulled back, lifting him into his arms and striding toward a medicinal pool. But before they reached it, a great gout of blood erupted from Ethan's mouth. His chest heaved like a broken bellows. Silas's grip tightened, and he stepped into the pool with Ethan still in his arms. The medicine was agony. Ethan told him to get out, but Silas didn't move. Instead, he pulled him closer, his back against Silas's chest, murmuring that he had misspoken and would accept the punishment with him. As the pain racked his body, Silas once again offered his own forearm to Ethan's lips. Ethan pushed up the sleeve, revealing smooth, pale skin. He knew that just a day before, it had been covered in bite marks, deep enough to show bone, left by him. Seeing his hesitation, the man leaned close to his ear, his voice like a siren's call, asking if he couldn't bear to bite him. He couldn't. After his parents died, no one had ever shown him the kindness that Silas had. Julian had raised him at arm's length. He didn't blame him. Julian was his master, a powerful warrior to be admired. As a boy, he had mistaken that admiration for love. But if he had to choose between that master-student bond and true affection, he would never have dragged the celestial being he worshipped down into the mortal realm. Gods belonged on high, but Silas was different. He had desires, emotions. Like him, he was mortal. The water-soaked sleeve became transparent. Ethan wrapped his arms around Silas's neck, his eyes red from suppressed pain. He looked at him and pleaded, his voice a raw whisper. He told Silas it hurt so much, and asked him to kiss him. The young man's eyes were bright with unshed tears, his eyelashes trembling. Silas finally cupped his waist and, amidst the bone-deep agony, their lips met. Today, Silas would no longer refuse their union of life forces. After Leo received the etheric core, his power grew rapidly, but it was nothing compared to the talent of the former senior brother. He was arrogant and ill-tempered, and soon the other disciples were complaining to Julian. But Julian couldn't be bothered to listen, and his own reputation within the order began to suffer. He had no time for any of it. After leaving with Leo and the core, he had intended to go back for Ethan. But Leo had suddenly coughed up blood, and amidst a barrage of complaints from the floating text, Leo's obedience seemed all the more precious. Leo had told him that he knew he was worried about his senior brother and that he should go. He said he wouldn't die right away, that he could hold on until Julian came back to save him. He was so considerate. A pang of guilt struck Julian. He rationalized that Ethan had been disobedient and that taking the core was his penance. He couldn't be too lenient. Besides, Ethan was injured but still powerful. He would wait. He would go back for him after Leo was healed. The healing took half a month. When he finally returned to the ravine, all he found were dried patches of blood and shredded white cloth. Ethan was gone. Julian knew he wasn't dead. His lifelight in the Order's hall was still burning, but he never expected him to have disappeared. Even knowing he was alive, a surge of panic and grief caused Julian to spit up a mouthful of blood. It splattered on the ground, a fresh red against the old stains. He stood there, frozen, a hollow ache in his chest, as if something essential had been lost forever. When Julian returned to the Order, Leo ran to greet him, his eyes shining. But looking at him, Julian saw Ethan. He remembered how his first disciple, a small boy, used to wait for him at the gates every day, eagerly awaiting his return. Leo asked if his senior brother had come back. His words were full of concern, but the text floating above him was vile. How dare a cannon fodder character trouble our Leo? He served his purpose. His death was worth it. Master is Leo's male lead. Why does he keep thinking about that cannon fodder? He's the son of destiny. The cannon fodder was born to give his life for the protagonist. The words accused him, calling Leo the son of destiny and Ethan cannon fodder. The pain in his chest made him question everything for the first time. Even if his own master had prophesied a world-ending calamity, was sacrificing his disciple, sacrificing the one he loved, for something that hadn't even happened, truly worth it? He wasn't made of stone. He had seen the adoration in Ethan's eyes, but they were master and disciple. He had always kept his distance. Leo's arrival was meant to be a test, to make Ethan give up on his feelings, and also because the text said Leo was the chosen one. Only now, having lost him, did he realize how terribly wrong he had been. When Leo tried to approach him again, he flinched away and immediately ordered a search for Ethan. He, who had always prided himself on his impartiality, who had refused to use the Order's resources to find the murderers of Ethan's parents, was now mobilizing everyone. The hollow space in his chest screamed at him that he had to find him. He remembered Ethan's accusations that day. This time he would not doubt him. He never imagined their reunion would be at Ethan's commitment ceremony to another man. In a dark, chaotic dream, he stood alone in a circle of light. All around him were strange, translucent panels of text. Our Leo is destined to save the world. What's one cannon fodder senior brother? Ethan's etheric core was made for Leo. As a plot device, why is he struggling? He should just get off the stage. Soon the world will collapse. To save it, sacrificing one cannon fodder is nothing. The shadow beast is already drawn to Leo. All that's left is the core from the cannon fodder, and our Leo will become the young hero who saves everyone. The panels spun around him, their words passing judgment on his fate with tones of indifference, disgust, or excitement. Beyond the panels, he saw Julian's hesitation and Leo's eager anticipation. Finally, one sentence flashed and Julian made his decision. Why are you hesitating? What is more important, one person or all three realms? To Julian, the world was more important than him. His hesitation vanished. For something that had not yet happened, he sentenced him to death. His expression was full of pity. He said that Leo was the chosen one, that fate could not be denied, and that Ethan's struggles were futile. He thrust his sword into the back of his neck. Blood gushed out as he cut him open and took the core. He didn't fight back. His hope was gone. He would never get his revenge. Julian looked at him with such pity, such sorrow, but his hands were covered in his blood. He held him, about to take him back, when Leo collapsed. He let go of him to catch Leo, who whimpered that his chest hurt and he was dying. Julian looked back at him one last time, promising to return for him immediately. He then left carrying Leo. Between him and Leo, Julian had abandoned him again. He waited for 7 days. Julian broke his promise. He never came back. He was left alone in the ravine, death slowly closing in. How ridiculous. After everything he had done, he was still hoping he would come back to save him. Amidst the struggle, the pain, the rage, as he was about to die, Silas came. He said he was beautiful, that he was born to be a disciple of the Crimson Order. He said that since he had found him, his life and death were his to decide. He took him everywhere, searching for a cure. But without the etheric core, every healer said he was beyond saving, that his path to power was severed forever. He refused to accept it. If he couldn't get his revenge, what was the point of living? Silas said nothing, just continued their journey, facing disappointment after disappointment. Finally, Ethan gave up. Lying in a magically propelled carriage, he let his tears fall. He told Silas to leave him, to let him die. He said he wanted to see his parents again. He begged Silas, if he truly had a good heart, to kill his enemies for him, and he would repay him in the next life. The man behind him was silent for a long time. Then, with a soft chuckle, a searing hot hand clasped his bare ankle. He told Ethan that he hadn't seen the Crimson Order's rules yet. The hand caressed his skin, making him tremble. His already weak body went limp. The man leaned over him, his captivating eyes inches away, his scent an intoxicating cold fragrance. For a moment, death and despair were forgotten, replaced by a primal fear of such intimate proximity. He stammered, asking what rules. Within the Crimson Order, master and disciple served as vessels for each other's power. Silas's voice was a low whisper. So, before I've had my fill, you are not allowed to die. He held his chin and captured his trembling lips. It was not a sweet kiss, but in that moment, it silenced all his desperate thoughts, bringing an unexpected warmth. Later, Silas took him to the Valley of 1,000 Venoms. They waited for half a month, but the infamous poison healer never appeared. Disappointed, Ethan suggested they leave. Silas pinched his cheek and asked him in a low, cold voice if he was brave. Ethan nodded. Silas scoffed at the idea of leaving so easily after being so polite for weeks. A sense of unease gripped Ethan. He asked what he was planning. The handsome man's lips curved into a wicked smile, his eyes sparkling. Ethan, he said, do you want to cause a little trouble? That night, they snuck into the valley. More accurately, Silas carried him, strapped to his chest. The trees were filled with countless traps and the sound of insects. Ethan began to voice his concern about the mechanisms, but Silas simply lit a torch and, with brutal simplicity, set fire to the healer's meticulously cultivated lair. The poison healer emerged just in time to save half of it. He was furious, but the moment he saw Ethan, his eyes widened. He identified his etheric core heritage and took an involuntary step forward, asking if he was the missing senior disciple of the Jade Spire Order. Ethan. Missing? He didn't answer, just looked up at Silas. Their eyes met, and a clear flash of displeasure crossed Silas's face. He sneered, dismissing the Jade Spire Order. I found him, so he's mine. The healer was speechless, asking if they wanted treatment or not. Perhaps frightened by Silas, or intrigued by the rare etheric core, the healer agreed to help. But his injuries were too severe for normal methods. The healer proposed a radical treatment, fighting poison with poison, nurturing injury with injury. He admitted he wasn't sure it would work. They looked at each other, and in unison, Ethan and Silas agreed. But his body was too weak to absorb the medicine without an external power source to circulate it. His own core was gone. He didn't understand what that meant until he saw the dark look on Silas's face. The healer smirked at Silas, asking if he wasn't fond of his little apprentice. He suggested finding a suitable vessel for him. No vessel was found, because Silas trusted no one else. Ethan fell silent, asking if there was another way. Silas gently cupped his thinned face. His eyes filled with a tenderness he himself didn't seem to recognize. He promised to personally channel the energy for him every day, telling him not to be afraid. The treatment began, but progress was slow. He had overheard the healer telling Silas outside that their order's intimate energy exchange would be much faster. He said Silas could save Ethan himself. But when Silas returned, he never mentioned it. He wanted to ask why, but since Silas didn't bring it up, he pretended not to have heard. Until one night, his mind was unstable, his body made fragile by the poisons. The word master triggered a deep well of hatred. That night, as he wished, Silas held him in the medicinal bath. The tingling pain and overwhelming pleasure coursed through him, making his toes curl. Energy awakened, exchanged, and intertwined between their bodies. At the peak of it, he cried out, his voice trembling, but he still managed to whisper in Silas's ear, asking why he was so good to him. The man above him paused for a moment before his assault became even more ferocious. His thoughts were shattered, his mind once again consumed by desire. Just before he lost consciousness, Silas held him and whispered something. It sounded like, "I am not good to you. If I were, I would have come back sooner. Much sooner. Even if you hated me, I would have torn you from his side and locked you away with me." His exhausted mind struggled to process it, but he only caught the first part. With tears on his lashes, his eyes still flushed, he managed to murmur one thing before falling into a deep sleep. You are very good. No one has been better." His recovery was not yet stable when Silas presented him with a great gift. He asked, his voice sharp, if he had truly found them. He grabbed his hand, his eyes desperate. Silas nodded and gave him a memory crystal. It showed one of the Crimson Order's disciples, a charming young woman, easily coaxing the story from one of the acolytes who had destroyed his village. The acolyte bragged about how insignificant the mortals were. He said they had fancied a couple of girls, but when they refused, his friend had set their houses on fire. He asked what they were if not gods, and shouldn't the best be offered to them? He laughed at the idea of anyone daring to resist. The disciple, named Flora, smiled sweetly, her eyes bewitching. The acolyte was about to make a move on her when a sudden pain shot through his stomach, and he collapsed, vomiting blood. Flora wiped her trident clean with a placid smile, scoffing at the weakling who dared to touch her. Then, she turned to the memory crystal, her expression changing instantly to a bright smile as she gave a formal bow, thanking her master for the reward. The memory crystal went dark. Silas squeezed his hand. Hatred boiled in his chest. He had finally found the ones who had murdered his parents. He thanked Silas, but trailed off. He had nothing. He didn't know how to repay him. Silas seemed to understand. He lifted his chin, his dark eyes shimmering with an indescribable tenderness. He told him that by saving him, Ethan now belonged to him. By helping him get revenge, Ethan would share his bed. "Ethan," he said, "we are a perfect match." He did nothing, yet he was like a tempting demon, his gaze alone enough to make one's body burn. His self-control was too weak. He wrapped his arms around his neck, and what followed was a night of passion. Silas's gaze was always on him, filled with a love and pity he couldn't comprehend. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that he wanted to enter into a formal commitment with him. Ethan's heart skipped a beat, and he asked aloud if he was serious. Silas gently tucked a strand of white hair behind his ear, a side effect of the potent medicines. His eyes lingered on his face as if he were looking at the most beautiful thing in the world. He declared his intention to announce to all the realms that Ethan was his fated partner. Ethan said it wasn't that he was unwilling, but that with his revenge incomplete, he couldn't be at peace. Silas checked his pulse, noting he was still weak. He reasoned that since they knew who the enemy was, a little more time wouldn't matter. Besides, the other order was large, and it would be dangerous to go alone. Silas, who was usually so carefree, was now speaking of his affairs with the utmost caution. How could he be unwilling? He smiled at him. So Silas's eyes curved into a seductive arch. His finger playfully tilted Ethan's chin up. He said that since the beauty was to be his spouse, the entire Crimson Order would be his backing. On the day of his revenge, the whole order would stand with him. "And me," he added, "at my husband's command." His heart felt as if it were submerged in a hot spring, warm and comforting. Tears fell. He thought of all he had been through and realized that good fortune truly could follow despair. Silas asked why he was crying on such a happy day and wiped his tears. But Ethan threw himself into his arms, holding him tight. And there, in that warm embrace, he wept out all his past sorrows. Silas didn't stop him, just gently patted his back, murmuring, "Cry, I'm here." All his suffering, all his grief, he laid bare before Silas. He didn't believe in vows of eternal love, but he believed in Silas. The Crimson Order's commitment ceremony drew prominent figures from every realm. The Jade Spire Order also sent representatives, including Julian and Leo. To everyone's surprise, the usually taciturn Julian was relentlessly questioning disciples about the identity of Silas's partner. His search ended when a disciple told him with a smirk, "Our young master's name is Ethan. Does that sound familiar, Sword Master Julian?" Julian froze, his body rigid with shock. The ceremony began. As celebratory music filled the air, he and Silas walked out, hand in hand, dressed in ceremonial red. Silas, already stunningly handsome, looked absolutely breathtaking. He whispered in Ethan's ear, asking if he looked good. Ethan, blushing, nodded dumbly, so engrossed that he didn't even see Julian in the crowd below. Silas raised a hand, thanking the guests for attending the commitment ceremony for him and his disciple, Ethan. As soon as the name was spoken, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Many found the name familiar. Someone remembered that the prodigy from the Jade Spire Order, the one with the etheric core, was named Ethan. He had been missing for half a year. How could the missing disciple of the Jade Spire Order become the disciple and partner of the Master of the Crimson Order? The speaker glanced mockingly toward Julian and Leo. He added that he'd heard that not long after Ethan disappeared, his junior brother had suddenly manifested an etheric core of his own. The word hung in the air. An etheric core was a once-in-a-century phenomenon. How could two appear at once? He trailed off, understanding dawning on his face as he looked at Leo. Leo's face flushed with anxiety, and he reached for Julian's sleeve. Before he could touch him, a figure stepped forward, his voice ringing out. "I object to this union." At the familiar voice, Ethan turned. He saw Julian, his eyes bloodshot, staring at him. He instinctively frowned. "Master." Hearing this, Julian strode forward, his expression agitated. He cried out Ethan's name, saying he had come to take him home. But Ethan ignored him, turning to Silas. He asked if this was his master's grand gift to him. Silas raised an eyebrow, a slight smile playing on his lips. He touched Ethan's furrowed brow. He chided him gently, saying that now they were committed, he should be calling him husband, not master. Before he could respond, Julian lost his composure. He accused Silas, the scoundrel of the Crimson Order, of deceiving Ethan. He couldn't believe Ethan would willingly do this. The Crimson Order occupied an ambiguous place in the world, neither wholly righteous nor wholly evil, so both sides gave Silas a measure of respect. Ethan stepped in front of Silas, looking down at Julian. He had rarely shown emotion before, but now his eyes were red as he pleaded with him. Ethan's voice was cold. "Who are you to speak ill of my master?" Julian's face paled. He insisted that he was Ethan's master, and demanded to know what dark arts Silas had used on him. Ethan raised an eyebrow, a hint of Silas's own playful mockery in his smile. He mused that if their intimate union counted as dark arts, then yes, he had. Julian, the celestial warrior, froze, his lips parted as if to say something, but all that came out was, "I went back for you." I didn't abandon you." "Oh?" Ethan replied. "Is that so? And when did you go back for me?" Julian fell silent again, the proud, cold man now looking like a lost dog, utterly wretched. Some guests whispered amongst themselves, their curious gazes like needles on Leo's skin. The scene felt like a repeat of the past. His eyes red, Leo drew his sword and charged at Ethan, screaming that he would kill him. Julian cried out Ethan's name and moved to block the attack, but Silas intercepted him. Julian demanded to know what he was doing. Silas's voice was like ice. "That is my disciple. It is none of your business." He added that if Julian had truly cared for him, Ethan would not be without his etheric core today. As they faced off, the fight on the other side was already over. The tip of Ethan's sword rested on Leo's neck. Leo glared at him with pure hatred, like a demon from the abyss. But Ethan was staring at the text floating above his head, stunned. "Wait, what's going on?" Ethan is supposed to be the cannon fodder. How is he beating our Leo? What is the author thinking? Julian is the male lead, but he's still hung up on the cannon fodder. Then what does that make Leo? The third wheel? I know what happened. The original author abandoned the story after the master and disciple had some romantic tension. A bunch of people started writing their own endings. I remember the original protagonist was named Ethan. The whole saving the world thing. The original was just a bittersweet romance. There wasn't even a real villain. Well, if you want a villain, I guess Silas was sort of one. Driven by love to almost kill Julian. Wait, shouldn't he have tried to kill Ethan? Oh, he was obsessed with him. He could never bring himself to do it. The words, invisible to everyone else, were seen by both him and Julian. The moment Julian read them, he recoiled, looking at Leo in disbelief. Ethan had harbored some fear of Leo because of the prophecy, but now he knew he could just kill him. He thrust his sword forward, but a black shadow erupted from Leo's body and lunged at him. The shadow beast. Wasn't it sealed in the back mountains of the Jade Spire Order? The attack was so sudden that it almost struck him. Julian charged forward, engaging the beast. Seeing his chance, Leo turned to flee. But Silas, his red robes swirling, blocked his path. A fan of white jade flew from his sleeve, moving with a deadly grace. It was the first time Ethan had ever seen Silas use a weapon. Fan suited him. In moments, Leo was pinned to the ground. The fight with the shadow beast also concluded. It glanced at Leo, then vanished. Silas sneered, remarking on Julian's brilliant judgment. The boy who had falsely accused Ethan of luring him to the back mountains was now the very vessel for the shadow beast. Julian looked chagrined but turned his attention back to Ethan. He said that until matters were cleared up, the ceremony would have to be delayed. Delayed. He was clearly trying to ruin his commitment to Silas. Ethan glanced at Leo, who was still pinned under Silas's foot. Leo's eyes were fixed on Julian as he pleaded his innocence, claiming he didn't know how the beast got inside him, that he was just jealous of Julian always looking at Ethan. His pleas were desperate, but Julian's gaze never left Ethan. This irritated Silas. Ethan reached out and squeezed his hand. "No need," he said. He told Julian that if he wished to clean house, the cliffs were just outside. He asked him not to delay their ceremony any further. Julian trembled, as if he could barely stand. He asked, his voice cracking, if he really meant to be with him when he was supposed to be his male lead. Ethan silently finished the sentence for him. A destiny he had destroyed with his own hands. He didn't look at him again, just gestured toward the door. "Please." Pained and silent, Julian finally closed his eyes in defeat and led Leo out of the hall. Silas scoffed that he had gotten off easy. The ceremony continued. Hand in hand, he and Silas became a couple envied by all the realms. The story of what had happened would soon spread far and wide. The next day, Julian appeared at their mountain retreat, his face pale. He had come to return the etheric core. Ethan refused to see him. Silas opened the door. When he reached for the core, wrapped in red cloth, Julian wouldn't let go. From inside, Ethan's voice came, telling him that if he was so unwilling, he should just take it back. Julian's hand went limp. His gaze remained fixed on the house. He said that whether Ethan believed it or not, they were fated to be together, and he would take him back even if it meant fighting the entire world. Ethan's patience wore thin. He kicked open the door. The world. He mocked how easily he spoke of it. For people like him, weren't all those below them just ants? Did he ever think about the children, the families, the parents of those ants? It was his own cowardice, his refusal to face his feelings for him, that had led to this. And now he spoke of defying the world? Did he think the world owed him something? If this was what the righteous path was, he wanted no part of it. Julian was speechless. After a long moment, he weakly accused him, "Ethan, you've changed." Ethan snorted. "Thanks to you." He said nothing more and left, a broken man. Silas came to embrace him, playfully praising him for his righteousness and refusal to associate with hypocrites. Ethan gave him a flat look and pushed him away. It was the first time he had ever rejected his touch. Silas froze. "Ethan? Tell me," Ethan said. "Tell me everything you haven't said." Silas smiled, his eyes curving beautifully. He said he would tell him whatever he wanted to know. Ethan's gaze fell to the jade fan at his waist. He drew it, opened it. On it were 4 words in his own handwriting. "A gentle breeze arrives." Silas's expression flickered. He tried to claim it was fate. Ethan told him that if he wouldn't speak, he wouldn't force him, but they would live as partners in name only. He turned to leave, but Silas grabbed his arm. Their eyes met. After a moment, Silas yielded. He told Ethan about the Son of Destiny. Silas couldn't see the text, but he was a participant in the story. He had loved him for several lifetimes, but in every one, Ethan had only had eyes for Julian. The story had no ending, so they were trapped in a repeating loop. Only Silas retained his memories. He thought that if time reset enough, maybe one day he would be the one to save him, to save his parents. But it never happened. He relived the cycle of despair, carrying the fan Ethan had written for him in the first life. Until one day something changed. Leo appeared. The same events unfolded, but he had arrived too late. He found Ethan already dead. His eyes had gone red, his hands shaking uncontrollably. Julian had believed Leo was the chosen one who would save the world, but he had killed him instead. And when Ethan died, the world collapsed. The universe unraveled. Everything was annihilated to accompany him in death. When he awoke, he was back in the Crimson Order. "I am the protagonist," he explained. "The story revolves around me. Leo was an anomaly, an intruder who thought he could steal my life and Julian. But if I die, everything ends. That is the true world-ending calamity." He told Ethan that when he found him bleeding in the ravine, he thought he had been too late again. The beautiful, fox-like man was weeping, tears streaming down his face and landing like hot stones on Ethan's heart. "Silas," Ethan whispered, "you found me this time." His answer was to be pulled into a fierce embrace. The questions in his heart were finally answered with a story both moving and heartbreaking. Outside the gates of the offending order, the disciples of the Crimson Order stood ready. Silas was with them, there to support him. "Ethan of the Crimson Order has come for revenge." The order's master tried to negotiate, but seeing his resolve, he handed over the disciples responsible. They wept and begged for forgiveness, the titans of that day now groveling ants. But their regret was born of fear, not remorse. One swing of his sword, and 10 lives were ended. He looked up at the sun, a wave of homesickness washing over him. After parting with the disciples, he flew with Silas back to where his village had once stood. He expected to find ruins, but instead, he found a new, thriving village. There was smoke rising from chimneys, the sound of children crying, and a familiar-looking courtyard. He walked closer, almost able to see his mother wiping her hands on her apron, calling him for dinner. He could see his father at the table, placing the largest pieces of venison in his and his mother's bowls. "Mom, Dad," he whispered, "I've avenged you." Silas asked if he wanted to go in. He shook his head, saying it was someone else's home now. But Silas took his hand and led him forward. Against the light, his eyes were full of warmth. "Ethan," he said, "this isn't someone else's home. It's our home." He then learned that after rescuing him, Silas had sent people to rebuild the village, even recreating his childhood home from his descriptions in past lives. "Silas," Ethan said, "I have a secret to tell you, too." He told him everything about Leo, Julian, and the floating text. He said he finally understood why the story had no ending. It was because, after everything, they were the ones who were meant to be together. Leo, who never belonged in this world, began to fade after his etheric core was removed by Julian. With Ethan's consciousness awakened and a new ending being written with Silas, the world began to correct the anomaly. People started to forget him, then they couldn't see him. Soon, only he, Silas, and Julian could perceive his existence. He was alive but dead to the world. He screamed and cried and begged, but eventually, even the story itself abandoned him. He went mad. Julian visited a few times, but Ethan never saw him. He developed an inner demon, and his power stagnated. He spent his days and nights drunk. Years passed, and no one remembered the cold, proud sword master of the Jade Spire Order. They only knew of a strange, pathetic drunkard. He and Silas practiced together, saved the world together. 500 years passed. On the day of their ascension, 9 bolts of heavenly lightning descended, but were deflected by the golden light of their accumulated good deeds. They had achieved their goal. "Daddy, what happened then?" Then they ascended to the celestial realm. After 10,000 years of cultivation, they opened a crack in space-time and fell into a new world. And then Silas started a company, and Ethan took up a pen name and wrote a fantasy novel. Really? What was the name? A gentle breeze arrives,